The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the university library, casting thin strips of light across Noah Bennett's worn textbooks. His fingers tapped nervously against the edge of his laptop as he glanced up for the 5th time in 20 minutes. 3 tables away, Olivia Westfield sat surrounded by her usual crowd of admirers, her laughter cutting through the library's hushed atmosphere like wind chimes in a cemetery. "Just go talk to her," whispered Marcus, Noah's roommate and only real friend on campus. "What's the worst that could happen?" Noah pushed his thick-framed glasses up the bridge of his nose. At 21, his lanky frame and perpetually disheveled appearance made him invisible to most of Preston University's student body, especially to someone like Olivia. "The worst? She could look at me like I'm something she scraped off her shoe," Noah muttered, closing his laptop. "Besides, people like her don't date people like me." Marcus rolled his eyes. "People like her? You've barely exchanged 10 words with her in the entire semester. You don't even know her." But Noah felt like he did. For the past year, he'd watched Olivia from a distance, not in a creepy way, he assured himself, but with genuine admiration. She was ambitious, articulate in class discussions, and seemed to navigate the social hierarchies of college with effortless grace. Everything Noah couldn't do. "The spring festival is tomorrow," Marcus said, gathering his books. "Everyone will be there. It's your last chance before summer break." Noah nodded absently, his eyes still fixed on Olivia. What Marcus didn't know was that Noah had already made up his mind. After months of rehearsing what he would say, tomorrow he would finally tell Olivia Westfield how he felt. The Spring Festival transformed Preston University's austere campus into a vibrant carnival. Multicolored tents dotted the central quad. Music pulsed from speakers, and the scent of food from a dozen different cultures filled the air. Noah stood at the edge of it all, palms sweating as he clutched a small envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten on actual paper, which Marcus had insisted was either incredibly romantic or incredibly outdated. Noah had poured everything into those words. How Olivia's comments in their shared advanced economics class had changed his perspective. How her presentation on sustainable business models had inspired his own research project, and how her kindness to Professor Harmon after his wife's passing had shown a depth of character that few noticed. Noah spotted her near the main stage, surrounded by her usual group. She wore a flowing sundress, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders as she laughed at something Blake Thompson, star quarterback and campus royalty, whispered in her ear. "I can't do this," Noah mumbled to himself, turning away. "Yes, you can." Marcus appeared beside him, firmly turning him back around. "Look, man, you've been obsessing over this girl for a year. Either tell her how you feel or move on, but don't spend another semester stalking her Instagram at 2 a.m. Noah winced at the harsh truth. With a deep breath, he nodded and began walking toward Olivia, each step feeling like he was trudging through quicksand. He was halfway there when the crowd shifted, and suddenly Olivia looked up, her eyes meeting his. For one surreal moment she smiled, a reflexive, polite acknowledgement that made Noah's heart rate double. That smile gave him the final push of courage he needed. "Olivia?" His voice cracked slightly as he approached the group. 6 pairs of eyes turned to him, expressions ranging from confusion to amusement. "Could I, speak with you for a minute?" Blake snickered, but Olivia silenced him with a glance. "Sure," she said, her voice neutral. "Do I know you from somewhere?" The question stung. They'd shared 3 classes over the past year. He'd even answered her question about differential equations once when she'd turned around in her seat during a lecture. "I'm Noah. We have advanced economics together, and calculus last semester, and introduction to business ethics before that." "Right," she said, though her expression remained blank. "What's up?" Noah became acutely aware that her friends were watching, some already smirking. But he'd come too far to back out now. With trembling hands, he held out the envelope. "I wanted to give you this," he said, "and to tell you that I've admired you for a long time. And I was wondering if maybe you'd like to get coffee sometime, or dinner, or whatever you prefer, really. I'm flexible." He was rambling, his carefully rehearsed speech abandoned in the panic of the moment. Olivia's expression shifted from polite interest to something else, something that made Noah's stomach drop. She took the envelope, and for one hopeful moment, Noah thought she might actually read it. Instead, she glanced at her friends, a silent communication passing between them that Noah couldn't decipher. "That's sweet," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "But I think there's been a misunderstanding." She handed the envelope back without opening it. "I don't even know who you are." "I told you, I'm Noah. We've had 3 classes together." "No, I mean I don't know you," she clarified, her voice louder now, drawing the attention of nearby festival goers. "And honestly, it's a little weird that you've been, what did you call it, admiring me from afar." Noah felt the blood drain from his face as he realized what was happening. This wasn't going to be a gentle rejection. This was going to be a public execution. "It's not like that," he began, but Blake cut him off. "Dude, take a hint. She's not interested." Blake's arm slid possessively around Olivia's waist. Several people had stopped to watch the scene unfold, and Noah noticed with horror that one of Olivia's friends was holding up her phone, recording. Olivia's expression hardened, her next words precisely calculated for maximum impact. "Look, I'm flattered that you think you have a chance with me, but let's be realistic. You shuffle around campus like you're apologizing for existing. Your idea of fashion is whatever was on the clearance rack, and I'm supposed to be impressed by a handwritten letter? What is this, the 1800s? Laughter rippled through the growing crowd. Noah stood frozen, the envelope still extended between them like a bridge to nowhere. "I just thought, that's the problem." Olivia interrupted, her voice ringing with a cruelty that seemed to surprise even some of her friends. "You didn't think, because if you had, you would have realized that this," she gestured between them, "would never happen. Not in this lifetime." The crowd's reaction was immediate, a mixture of gasps, laughter, and the unmistakable sound of smartphone notifications as the video began circulating. Noah stood rooted to the spot, humiliation burning through him like acid. It was Marcus who finally intervened, appearing at Noah's side and firmly guiding him away from the scene. "Show's over," he growled at the onlookers, many of whom were already returning to their phones, eager to share in Noah's public evisceration. As they retreated, Noah glanced back once to see Olivia already reabsorbed in her social circle, laughing as Blake showed her something on his phone, likely the very video of Noah's humiliation, already making its rounds. "I told you," Noah whispered, his voice hollow. "The worst that could happen." The video spread through Preston University like wildfire. By evening, "Library Boy Rejected" was trending on campus social media. By morning, Noah couldn't walk to class without whispers and snickers following in his wake. For 3 days, he endured it, the altered memes of his face, the dramatic reenactments of his rejection, the anonymous messages suggesting he transfer schools or worse, end his life. On the 4th day, he stopped attending classes. "You can't let them win," Marcus insisted, sitting on the edge of Noah's bed, where he'd remained buried under covers for nearly 48 hours. "They already won," Noah replied, his voice muffled. "I can't show my face anywhere without becoming a walking punchline." The truth was, it wasn't just the humiliation. It was the realization that he'd built Olivia up in his mind as someone she clearly wasn't. The person he'd admired wouldn't have been so deliberately cruel. Had he been wrong about her, or had she changed? Either way, it didn't matter now. A week later, Noah submitted his withdrawal forms to the university administration. The official reason cited was family emergency, but the sympathetic look from the administrative assistant made it clear that everyone knew the truth. As he packed his belongings into Marcus's car, Noah paused at his desk, picking up the envelope that had never been opened. For a moment he considered tearing it up, a symbolic destruction of his former self. Instead, he tucked it into his laptop case. A reminder of what happened when you gave people the power to hurt you. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked as they drove away from campus, the spring sunshine seeming to mock Noah's darkened spirits. Noah stared out the window at the receding buildings of Preston University. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I can't stay here." What he didn't say, what he couldn't articulate even to himself, was the strange, cold resolution forming in the center of his chest. This wouldn't be the end of his story. Somehow, someday, he would rise from this humiliation. And when he did, the world would be a very different place. As they drove past the city limits sign, Noah made a silent promise to himself. This was the last time anyone would ever make him feel small. 2 years later, the sleek glass headquarters of NB Innovations dominated the San Francisco skyline, its curved architecture reflecting the golden California sunset. On the top floor, Noah Bennett stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the city sprawled before him. At 23, he was barely recognizable from the awkward student who had fled Preston University in shame. Gone were the ill-fitting clothes and thick glasses, replaced by tailored suits and laser eye surgery. Hours in the gym had transformed his formerly lanky frame. But the most profound changes were invisible. The confidence that now radiated from him, the sharp business acumen that had turned his senior project into a multi-million-dollar startup in less than 18 months. "Mr. Bennett," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The board is ready for you." Noah straightened his tie, taking one last look at the San Francisco skyline. "On my way." In the boardroom, 12 executives waited, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Noah took his place at the head of the table, nodding to his COO, Eliza Wright, who immediately began the presentation. "As you can see from the projections, our growth is exceeding expectations in every market," she explained, gesturing to the charts displayed on the wall screen. "Which brings us to the next phase of expansion." Noah leaned forward. "I've identified our next acquisition target," he announced, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had become his trademark. "A small tech solutions company based in my hometown. They're struggling financially, but have valuable patents and an established customer base in sectors we've been wanting to enter." "The name of this company?" asked one of the board members, already typing notes on his tablet. Noah tapped his screen, and a new slide appeared. "Westfield Solutions." No one in the room noticed the slight edge in his voice as he said the name, or the cold determination that flickered briefly in his eyes. "Their CEO, Richard Westfield, built it from nothing 20 years ago," Noah continued. "But they've failed to innovate, and now they're drowning in debt. According to our sources, they're desperate for investors." "And you think we should buy them outright?" another board member asked skeptically. "They're not exactly aligned with our core business." "Trust me," Noah replied, a rare smile crossing his features. "This acquisition will be worth every penny." As the meeting concluded and the board members filed out, Eliza remained behind, studying Noah with the perceptive gaze that had made her invaluable as both COO and friend. "You never talk about your hometown," she observed. "Now suddenly you want to acquire a company based there. What's the real story, Noah?" For a moment he considered telling her everything, about Olivia, the humiliation, the video that had driven him from school and set him on this path. But the truth would make his motives seem petty, vindictive. And Noah had convinced himself this wasn't about revenge. This was about proving something to himself. "It's a sound business decision," he replied instead. "Their tech complements ours, and we can get them for a fraction of their actual value." Eliza didn't appear convinced, but she nodded anyway. "If you say so. But remember, whatever you're planning, business and personal don't mix well." After she left, Noah opened his desk drawer and removed a worn envelope, the same one Olivia had refused years ago. He'd kept it as a talisman, a reminder of how far he'd come. According to his sources, Olivia Westfield now worked as the marketing director at her father's company. She'd graduated with honors from Preston, only to watch her family's business slowly crumble under her father's outdated management style and the changing market. Noah ran his finger along the sealed edge of the envelope, remembering the earnest words written inside by a very different version of himself. That Noah had been naive, wearing his heart on his sleeve. This Noah knew better. His phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer. Westfield Board has approved preliminary discussions. They're desperate. Noah smiled, tucking the envelope back into the drawer. Phase 1 of his plan was complete. Soon, he would return to the town that had witnessed his greatest humiliation, not as Noah Bennett, the rejected nobody, but as NB, the mysterious tech wunderkind whose face was carefully kept out of media coverage. And Olivia Westfield wouldn't recognize him until it was too late. Have you ever wondered how completely your life can change in just 2 years? The Westfield Solutions headquarters bore little resemblance to NB Innovation's gleaming San Francisco campus. Located in a converted warehouse on the outskirts of town, its faded sign and cracked parking lot spoke volumes about the company's financial state. Noah adjusted his designer sunglasses as his driver pulled up to the entrance. He'd chosen to arrive late afternoon, when shadows would help obscure his features during the initial introductions. Though his appearance had changed dramatically, he couldn't risk Olivia recognizing him immediately. "Are you sure you want to handle this personally?" Eliza asked from the seat beside him. "We have people for acquisitions." "I'm sure," Noah replied, his voice clipped. He'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, ensuring his new identity as Nathan Blake was bulletproof. The few who knew his real name had signed ironclad NDAs, part of his carefully cultivated mystique as a privacy-obsessed tech founder. "Just remember," Eliza said as they exited the car, "whatever history you have here, and don't deny it, I know there's something, doesn't interfere with business." Noah nodded absently, his attention already fixed on the building entrance where a small, welcoming committee had assembled. His pulse quickened as he spotted her immediately, Olivia Westfield standing slightly behind an older man who could only be her father, Richard. She looked different from his memories, more polished and professional, but with a tightness around her eyes that suggested stress. The carefree college girl had been replaced by a woman, carrying visible weight on her shoulders. Richard Westfield stepped forward, hand extended. "Mr. Blake, an honor to meet you. I'm Richard Westfield, and this is my daughter and marketing director, Olivia." Noah shook his hand firmly, careful to keep his expression neutral as he turned to Olivia. "Ms. Westfield." Her eyes, those same hazel eyes that had once looked at him with such contempt, now regarded him with professional curiosity, without a flicker of recognition. "Welcome to Westfield Solutions, Mr. Blake. We're excited about the possibilities of this partnership." Noah felt a surge of cold satisfaction. She had no idea who he was. "Let's see if there's anything worth getting excited about," he replied, allowing just enough dismissiveness in his tone to see her professional smile falter slightly. As they walked through the facility, Richard dominated the conversation, desperately highlighting the company's strengths while glossing over obvious weaknesses. Noah barely listened, hyper-aware of Olivia walking beside him, occasionally interjecting with more realistic assessments that contradicted her father's optimism. "And this is our development team," Richard announced, leading them into an open workspace where about a dozen programmers looked up nervously from their stations. Noah scanned the room, feeling a jolt of unexpected recognition. In the corner, hunched over a keyboard, sat a familiar face, Blake Thompson, Olivia's former boyfriend, who had stood beside her during Noah's humiliation. The golden boy quarterback had apparently fallen far from his pedestal. "Blake is one of our junior developers," Richard explained, noticing Noah's gaze. "Started in the mailroom after college and worked his way up. Shows real promise." Blake nodded awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable under scrutiny. Noah noted with interest how Olivia barely glanced in Blake's direction, a coldness between them that suggested history. Impressive facility, Noah lied smoothly as they concluded the tour in the conference room. Though your infrastructure needs significant upgrading, we're aware of our limitations. Olivia interjected before her father could respond. That's precisely why we're interested in outside investment. With proper capital, we could implement the innovations we've been developing. Noah raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious despite himself. And what innovations would those be, Ms. Westfield? Your company hasn't released anything noteworthy in years. A flash of indignation crossed her face. With respect, Mr. Blake, you haven't seen our R&D department. We have several patents pending that could transform industrial supply chain management. Show me, Noah challenged. The next hour proved surprisingly enlightening. Despite his preconceptions, Westfield Solutions did indeed have valuable intellectual property buried beneath years of mismanagement. Olivia articulated the potential applications with a passion and intelligence that Noah reluctantly admired. Your projected market adoption rates are optimistic, he noted as she concluded her presentation. They're realistic if we have the right backing, she countered. The question is whether NB Innovations wants to be part of that success or watch another company discover what we have. Noah suppressed a smile at her negotiating tactic. I'm not convinced yet. I'll need to see the complete financial records and patent applications before making any decision. Richard looked nervous. Perhaps we could discuss terms first. Dad, Olivia interrupted gently. Mr. Blake deserves full transparency if he's considering an investment. She turned to Noah. I can have everything ready for you tomorrow morning. Will you be staying in town? Noah nodded. The Preston Grand Hotel. Have the documents delivered to my suite by 8 a.m. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I have another appointment this evening. As they walked to the exit, Noah deliberately slowed his pace, allowing Richard to move ahead with Eliza while he fell in step beside Olivia. Your father seems desperate, he observed quietly. She stiffened. We're in a transitional period. Is that what you call being 3 months from bankruptcy? Olivia stopped walking, turning to face him with narrowed eyes. How do you know that? I make it my business to know everything about potential acquisitions, Noah replied, including the fact that your father has mortgaged this building twice and that 3 of your largest clients are considering taking their business elsewhere. The color drained from her face. Then you also know how hard we've fought to stay afloat and that our core technology is valuable. Perhaps. Noah studied her, searching for any trace of the cruel college girl in this determined professional woman. Tell me, Ms. Westfield, how far would you go to save your father's company? Whatever it takes, she answered without hesitation. This company is my father's legacy. It employs 37 people who depend on these jobs. Noah hadn't expected the genuine concern in her voice. The Olivia he remembered had never shown such consideration for others. Admirable, he said, unable to keep a hint of skepticism from his tone. Though I wonder if your father shares your devotion. His leadership decisions suggest otherwise. Anger flashed in her eyes. My father built this company from nothing. He may have made mistakes, but he doesn't deserve to lose everything because of them. Noah's response was cut short as they reached the exit where Richard and Eliza waited. As handshakes were exchanged and platitudes offered, Noah found himself studying Olivia more carefully. Something wasn't adding up. The entitled, callous woman he'd expected to find seemed at odds with the fiercely protective daughter before him. Until tomorrow, Ms. Westfield, he said as he slid into the waiting car. Mr. Blake, she nodded, her expression carefully neutral. As the car pulled away, Eliza gave him a sidelong glance. So, is your mysterious personal mission accomplished? Noah stared back at the building receding in the distance. It's just beginning. The Preston Grand Hotel hadn't existed when Noah left town 2 years ago. The luxury establishment stood on what had once been an abandoned lot near the city center, a symbol of the town's attempts at revitalization. In his suite, Noah loosened his tie and poured himself a whiskey, gazing out at the lights of the small city he'd once called home. The campus of Preston University was visible in the distance, its distinctive clock tower illuminated against the night sky. His phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "You back in town yet? Still weird you won't tell me why." Noah smiled slightly. He and Marcus had remained friends, though their relationship had changed as Noah transformed himself and his circumstances. Marcus was now finishing medical school on the East Coast, unaware of Noah's true purpose in returning to their hometown. "Arrived today," Noah texted back. "Business acquisition, catching up tomorrow?" Marcus's reply came quickly. "Hell yes. The hideaway, 8 p.m. "Don't be a flake, rich boy." Noah set down his phone as a knock sounded at the door. He checked his watch. 10:30 p.m., too late for hotel service. Cautiously, he approached the door and checked the peephole. Olivia Westfield stood in the hallway, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. For a moment, Noah froze, unprepared for this unexpected development. He considered not answering, but curiosity won out. Composing his features into a mask of mild surprise, he opened the door. "Ms. Westfield, this is unexpected." She looked different than she had earlier. Her corporate attire replaced by dark jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. "I apologize for the late hour, Mr. Blake. May I come in?" Noah hesitated, then stepped aside. "I assume this isn't a social call." "Hardly." She entered the suite, her eyes quickly taking in the spacious accommodations before turning back to him. "I brought the financial documents you requested. I thought you might appreciate having them tonight rather than waiting until morning." "That's dedicated of you." Noah accepted the portfolio, setting it on a nearby table without opening it. "Though it could have waited. In my experience, people like you don't appreciate waiting." She remained standing, a slight tension in her posture. "And I wanted to speak with you privately." "Without your father present, you mean?" Noah gestured toward the sitting area. "Would you like a drink?" "No, thank you." She sat on the edge of an armchair, looking oddly vulnerable despite her professional demeanor. "Mr. Blake, I need to know your intentions regarding Westfield Solutions." Noah leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "My intentions? I'm considering a business acquisition. Nothing more." "But what kind of acquisition?" she pressed. "Are you looking to strip our assets, patent our technology, and discard the rest? Because if so, I'd rather you be direct about it." The bluntness of her question surprised him. "Why would you assume that's my plan?" "Because that's what companies like yours do," she replied, a hint of bitterness in her voice. "You find struggling businesses with valuable intellectual property, acquire them for pennies on the dollar, then dissolve them." Noah studied her, intrigued by this unexpected confrontation. "You seem to have a rather cynical view of the business world, Ms. Westfield." "I prefer realistic," she countered, "and you haven't answered my question." "My intentions," Noah said carefully, "will depend entirely on what I find in these documents and in further discussions with your team. If your technology is as promising as you claim, there might be value in keeping Westfield Solutions operational, under new management, of course." Relief flickered across her face, quickly masked. "That's encouraging. Though I assume new management wouldn't include my father." "Richard Westfield would receive a generous exit package," Noah confirmed. "But no, he wouldn't maintain operational control." She nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something she'd already accepted. "And the employees? That would depend on their value to the company." Olivia looked down at her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. "Mr. Blake, those people have families, mortgages, lives built around this community. I'm not asking you to make poor business decisions, but I am asking you to consider the human cost of whatever you decide." Noah felt a strange sensation in his chest, a crack in the cold determination that had driven him to this point. The Olivia, he remembered, would never have advocated so passionately for others. "Why do you care so much?" he asked, genuinely curious. "From what I've learned, you could easily find another position at a more successful company. Why chain yourself to a sinking ship?" She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "Because not everything is about personal advancement, Mr. Blake. Sometimes it's about responsibility to the people who depend on you." The words struck Noah with unexpected force. For 2 years, he'd nurtured an image of Olivia as callous and self-centered, using it to fuel his ascent and justify his return. Now, faced with this version of her, earnest, principled, fighting for others, he felt the first whisper of doubt about his plan. "I'll take your concerns under advisement," he said finally, his tone more gentle than he'd intended, "but I make no promises." Olivia stood, apparently recognizing the dismissal. "That's all I can ask. Thank you for your time." As she reached the door, Noah found himself calling after her, "Ms. Westfield." She turned, a questioning look on her face. "Why did Blake Thompson go from campus celebrity to junior developer at your father's company? Seems like quite a fall." Surprise registered in her expression, followed by wariness. "You know Blake?" Noah realized his mistake instantly. "I make it my business to know the key personnel at companies I'm considering acquiring," he covered smoothly. "His name appeared in my research." She seemed to accept this, though suspicion lingered in her eyes. "Blake made some poor decisions in college that affected his prospects. My father gave him a chance when no one else would." Her tone was neutral, revealing nothing of her personal feelings. "Charitable of him," Noah observed. "My father believes in second chances," she replied simply. "Good night, Mr. Blake." After she left, Noah poured himself another whiskey, unsettled by the encounter. He'd expected to find satisfaction in seeing Olivia desperate, perhaps even willing to compromise herself to save her father's company. Instead, he'd found a woman of unexpected integrity, fighting not for herself, but for others. He opened his laptop and pulled up the folder he'd compiled on Olivia Westfield over the past 2 years. News articles about her academic achievements, social media posts showing her volunteer work with a literacy program, professional recommendations praising her business ethics. Had she changed so dramatically since college, or had he misjudged her from the beginning? Noah closed the laptop, troubled by the question and what it might mean for his carefully constructed plan. He'd returned seeking a form of justice, but now found himself wondering, who exactly was he punishing, and for what? The hideaway hadn't changed in 2 years. Same scarred wooden bar, same dim lighting, same faded sports pennants on the walls. It was the kind of place college students avoided, preferring trendier venues closer to campus, which made it perfect for Noah's meetup with Marcus. Noah arrived early, choosing a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. He dressed down in jeans and a plain button-up, his usual tailored suits too conspicuous for this establishment. Still, the expensive watch on his wrist and the confident set of his shoulders marked him as someone who didn't quite belong. Marcus's entrance was typically dramatic, bursting through the door, scanning the room, then breaking into a wide grin when he spotted Noah. His bear hug was crushing, his enthusiasm undimmed by time or distance. "Look at you," Marcus exclaimed, sliding into the booth opposite Noah. "Silicon Valley's turned you into a GQ model. Almost didn't recognize you without those Coke bottle glasses." Noah smiled despite himself. Marcus was one of the few people who could break through his carefully constructed facade. "Medical school's treating you well too, though I see you still dress like a college freshman." Marcus laughed, gesturing to his worn t-shirt and cargo shorts. "Some of us don't have designer wardrobes, but seriously, man, it's good to see you." His expression turned more serious. "Though I'm still trying to figure out why you're really back in town. This business acquisition story seems convenient." Noah signaled the waitress for drinks. "It's legitimate. Westfield Solutions has technology that complements what we're developing at NB." "Westfield?" Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "As in Richard Westfield?" As in father of Olivia Westfield? The same, Noah acknowledged, keeping his tone casual. Marcus leaned forward. Noah, tell me this isn't about her. Tell me you didn't build a multi-million-dollar company just to get back at the girl who humiliated you in college. Don't be dramatic, Noah scoffed, though he felt a flush of discomfort at having his motives so easily discerned. This is a business decision. Bullshit! Marcus lowered his voice as the waitress delivered their beers. I know you, man. You might have changed your look and your tax bracket, but you're still the guy who keeps a list of everyone who ever wronged him. Noah took a long pull from his beer, avoiding Marcus's gaze. You make me sound pathological. Not pathological. Human. Marcus's tone softened. Look, I get it. What she did was cruel. That video was brutal. But it's been 2 years. You've built something amazing with your life. Why risk it on some petty revenge scheme? It's not about revenge, Noah insisted, though the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. It's about, I don't know, closing a chapter maybe. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Have you seen her yet? Olivia? Yes. Noah traced a pattern in the condensation on his glass. She's the marketing director at her father's company now. And? Was it everything you dreamed it would be? Did she recognize you? Noah shook his head. No, I've changed too much. So what's the plan? Marcus asked, his voice a mixture of concern and curiosity. Buy her father's company and fire her. Make her beg for her job. What's the end game here, Noah? Put so bluntly, the question made Noah uncomfortable. What was his end game? 2 years of focused determination suddenly seemed muddled, his purpose less clear than it had been just days ago. I don't know anymore, he admitted quietly. She's not who I thought she was. Or maybe she's changed. Marcus leaned back, surprise evident on his face. Well, that's not what I expected to hear. She came to my hotel room tonight, Noah continued, ignoring Marcus's raised eyebrows. Not like that. She brought financial documents, but really she wanted to plead for her employees' jobs. She seemed genuinely concerned about them. Maybe she's always been more complicated than the villain in your head, Marcus suggested gently. People usually are. Noah was prevented from responding by a commotion at the entrance. A small group had entered the bar, laughing loudly, and at their center was Blake Thompson, his arm around a woman who was definitely not Olivia. Noah tensed, his hand tightening around his glass. Blake hadn't changed much. Still handsome in that generic, athletic way, though he'd lost some of the swagger that had defined him in college. Easy, Marcus murmured, noticing Noah's reaction. Remember, he doesn't know who you are. Blake and his friends settled at the bar, ordering a round of shots with the boisterous energy of people determined to forget their weekday troubles. Noah watched them, a sour taste in his mouth. What happened to him and Olivia? He asked. They seemed inseparable in college. Marcus shrugged. No idea. I don't exactly run in their social circles, but college relationships rarely last, especially when they're built on social status rather than actual connection. Noah continued observing Blake, memories of that day at the spring festival surfacing unbidden. Blake's arm around Olivia's waist, his smirking encouragement as she tore Noah apart publicly. I should go, Noah said abruptly, setting down his half-finished beer. Early meeting tomorrow, Marcus frowned. Don't let him chase you off. You're not that scared kid anymore. It's not about him. Noah lied. It's genuinely about work. Westfield's financials are a mess, and I need to prepare for tomorrow's meeting. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he nodded. All right. But Noah, whatever you're planning, just make sure it's really what you want. Revenge might feel good in theory, but it rarely brings the closure people think it will. Noah stood, dropping cash on the table for their drinks. It's not about revenge, he repeated, though the words sounded increasingly hollow. It's about justice. There's a difference between justice and revenge, Marcus called after him as he walked away. One heals, the other just makes more wounds. Noah didn't respond, his mind already racing ahead to tomorrow's meeting at Westfield Solutions. and the next phase of a plan that suddenly felt less certain than it had just 24 hours ago. As he passed the bar, Blake glanced up, his eyes passing over Noah without recognition. For a brief moment, Noah considered introducing himself, watching realization dawn on Blake's face as he connected. Nathan Blake, to the awkward student he had helped humiliate. Instead, Noah walked past without a word, the ghost of his former self trailing behind him like a shadow he couldn't quite shake. Have you ever found yourself questioning whether the person you've been villainizing all along might actually be someone worth understanding? Morning light filtered through the blinds of Noah's hotel suite as he reviewed Westfield Solutions' financial documents for the third time. The picture they painted was even bleaker than he'd anticipated. The company was hemorrhaging money, surviving largely on Richard Westfield's personal loans to the business. A soft knock at the door announced Eliza's arrival. She entered carrying 2 coffee cups, handing one to Noah before settling into the chair opposite his desk. "You look terrible," she observed bluntly. "Late night?" Noah ran a hand through his hair, aware that his usually meticulous appearance had suffered from a night of restless sleep. "Just reviewing these financials. Westfield Solutions is on life support." "Then this should be straightforward," Eliza said, sipping her coffee. "We acquire them at a bargain price, extract the valuable patents, and dissolve the rest. Standard procedure." Noah nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. "What if we didn't?" "Didn't what?" "Dissolve the company," he clarified. "What if we restructured it instead? Their supply chain management software could complement our existing products if properly developed." Eliza studied him over the rim of her cup. "Possible, but inefficient. Integration would cost more than starting from scratch." She paused, her perceptive gaze narrowing. "This isn't like you, Noah. You've never been sentimental about acquisitions before." "It's not sentiment. It's strategy." Even to his own ears, the justification sounded weak. "Right." Eliza's tone made it clear she wasn't convinced. "This wouldn't have anything to do with Olivia Westfield, would it?" Noah's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I'm not blind, Noah. The way you looked at her yesterday, there's history there." For a moment, Noah considered continuing the denial, but Eliza deserved better. She'd been with him since the beginning, one of the few people he trusted implicitly. "We knew each other in college," he admitted. "Briefly. And?" Noah hesitated, then decided on a half-truth. "It didn't end well, but that's not influencing my decision-making." "If you say so." Eliza stood, gathering her tablet. "The Westfield team will be here in an hour for the final meeting. Whatever you decide, I'll back you, but be sure it's a business decision, not a personal one." After she left, Noah moved to the window, gazing out at the town he'd once called home. From this height, he could see Preston University in the distance, the scene of his humiliation now looking small and insignificant against the backdrop of his current life. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Need to speak privately before the meeting. Important. Olivia." Noah stared at the message, conflicting emotions churning within him. His plan had been so clear 2 days ago. Buy Westfield Solutions, reveal his identity to Olivia at the moment of her greatest vulnerability, and let her experience a fraction of the humiliation she'd once inflicted on him. Now, that plan felt hollow. The satisfaction he'd anticipated was being eroded by doubts, by the growing disconnect between the Olivia he remembered and the woman he'd encountered since returning. He typed a response. "Hotel lobby, 20 minutes. The Preston Grand Hotel lobby was quiet at this hour. Most business travelers already departed for morning meetings. Noah spotted Olivia immediately, seated in a secluded corner, her expression tense as she checked her watch. "Ms. Westfield," he greeted, sliding into the chair opposite her. "You wanted to see me?" She looked up, relief briefly flickering across her features. "Thank you for meeting me. I wouldn't have asked if it wasn't important. I assumed as much. What's this about?" Olivia glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot before leaning forward. My father doesn't know I'm here. After our conversation last night, I did some additional research on NB Innovations. Your company has a pattern of acquiring businesses like ours and dismantling them. Noah kept his expression neutral. That's an oversimplification of a complex business strategy. Perhaps, she conceded, but it's the pattern that concerns me, which is why I want to propose an alternative. This was unexpected. I'm listening. Let me buy you out, she said, determination evident in her voice. Not the whole company, obviously, but whatever percentage my father has already negotiated to sell. Noah couldn't hide his surprise. With what capital? The financials you provided show your family is already leveraged to the limit. I have investors, she replied. People who believe in what we're building and want to keep it local. They're prepared to match whatever offer you've made. These mystery investors have that kind of money available on such short notice. They've been waiting in the wings, Olivia admitted. I've been quietly seeking outside funding for months, but my father refused to consider it. He's traditional, believes in maintaining complete control. Noah leaned back, genuinely intrigued by this development. And now he's desperate enough that he might listen, but I need to present a concrete alternative to your offer. She met his gaze directly. Mr. Blake, I know we're essentially strangers, but I'm asking you to give us a chance. Name your price for walking away. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Noah. Here was Olivia Westfield, unwittingly asking her former victim for mercy, offering to pay him to disappear, just as he had once disappeared from Preston University after her cruelty made his life unbearable. Why should I? He asked, his voice cooler than he intended. This is business, Ms. Westfield. NB Innovations wants your company's assets. Because sometimes business is about more than just profit, she countered. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing. The right thing, Noah repeated, a bitter edge creeping into his tone. And you're an expert on that, are you? Confusion crossed her face at his sudden shift in demeanor. I'm not claiming moral superiority, Mr. Blake. I'm simply asking you to consider the human cost of your decision. For a moment, Noah was tempted to reveal himself, to watch recognition dawn in her eyes, to see if she even remembered what she'd done. Instead, he found himself asking a question that had been haunting him since their first meeting. Tell me something, Ms. Westfield. Do you believe people can truly change? Or are we all just performing versions of ourselves that suit our current circumstances? The unexpected philosophical turn seemed to catch her off guard. That's a complex question. May I ask why you're asking? Humor me. She considered the question for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I believe people can change fundamentally. Yes, not easily, and rarely without significant catalyst, but I've seen it happen. She paused, seeming to choose her next words carefully. I've experienced it myself. How so? A shadow passed over her face. In college, I was not someone I'm proud of having been. I prioritized social status over kindness, approval over integrity. It took a serious wake-up call to make me realize who I was becoming. Noah's heart rate accelerated. What kind of wake-up call? It's personal, she said, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation and not relevant to our business discussion. I think it might be more relevant than you realize, Noah replied, studying her with new intensity. Indulge me, please. Olivia sighed, her shoulders dropping slightly. Fine. During my junior year at Preston, I did something cruel to a fellow student. Public humiliation, recorded and spread across campus. At the time, I convinced myself he deserved it for putting me in an awkward position, but that was just self-justification. Noah's mouth went dry. What happened to him? He left the university. Guilt clouded her expression. I found out later he'd been struggling with depression already, and what I did, it could have pushed him to a much darker place. I got lucky. He survived, moved away, apparently built a new life somewhere else. Lucky for you, Noah said quietly. She shook her head. No, lucky for him. That he was strong enough to overcome what I did. She looked down at her hands. I tried to find him afterward, to apologize, but he disappeared completely. I don't even know if he finished his degree. The revelation stunned Noah into momentary silence. She had tried to find him, to apologize. This didn't align with the villain he'd constructed in his mind. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally. "Because you asked if people can change," she replied simply. "That incident changed me. It forced me to confront who I was becoming and make different choices. I spent the rest of college trying to be better, volunteering, mentoring struggling students, standing up to the toxic social dynamics I'd once perpetuated." Noah struggled to reconcile this narrative with the story he'd been telling himself for 2 years. And now, the marketing director fighting for her father's legacy and her employees' livelihoods. This is the real Olivia Westfield. As real as I know how to be. She met his gaze steadily. "We all have regrets, Mr. Blake. All we can do is try to build something better from them." Before Noah could respond, his phone buzzed with a message from Eliza. "Westfield team arriving early. Where are you?" "I need to go," he said, rising abruptly. "The meeting is about to start." Olivia stood as well, disappointment evident in her expression. "You haven't answered my proposal." "Because I don't have an answer yet," Noah replied honestly. "I'll see you upstairs, Ms. Westfield." As he walked away, Noah's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. The foundation of his carefully constructed plan was crumbling beneath him, built as it was on assumptions about a person who apparently no longer existed, if she ever had at all. The conference room of the Preston Grand buzzed with nervous energy as the Westfield team assembled on one side of the long table, facing Noah, Eliza, and NB Innovations legal counsel on the other. Richard Westfield's forced joviality couldn't mask the desperation in his eyes, while Olivia maintained a professional composure despite the tension between her and Noah. "Before we begin," Noah announced, his decision made in the elevator ride up from the lobby, "I want to clarify NB Innovations' intentions regarding this acquisition." All eyes turned to him, including Eliza's, whose subtle head tilt suggested concern about his unplanned deviation from their strategy. "After reviewing Westfield Solutions' assets, patents, and financial position, I've determined that a traditional acquisition would not serve our interests," Noah continued. "Instead, I'm proposing a structured investment and partnership." Richard Westfield's relief was palpable. "Wonderful news, Mr. Blake. I always said our companies would complement each other beautifully. However," Noah added, his tone cooling, "this proposal comes with conditions. First, Westfield Solutions will undergo comprehensive restructuring under NB's direct oversight." Richard's smile faltered. "Restructuring? What exactly does that entail?" "It means," Noah said bluntly, "that you'll be stepping down as CEO, Mr. Westfield. Your leadership decisions have brought this company to the brink of collapse. Our investment is contingent on new management." The room fell silent, tension thickening the air. Richard's face flushed deep red, while Olivia placed a restraining hand on her father's arm. "Who would you propose as replacement?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. Noah met her gaze directly. "You, Ms. Westfield." Surprise registered on every face in the room, Olivia's most of all. "Me? But I've never held a CEO position." "You've essentially been running the company already, according to our assessment," Noah replied. "The marketing directives, the R&D initiatives, the client retention strategies all bear your signature, not your father's." Richard Westfield stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is outrageous. You come in here, barely examine our operation, and presume to tell me my own daughter should replace me. I built this company from nothing." "Dad," Olivia interjected softly, "please sit down." "No, I won't be dictated to by some tech upstart with more money than sense." Richard turned to Noah, pointing an accusatory finger. "You think you can waltz in here and take over because we're struggling? We've weathered worse storms." Noah remained calm, letting the outburst wash over him. Mr. Westfield, your company has less than 90 days of operational capital remaining. Your largest client is preparing to terminate their contract next month. Without this investment, Westfield Solutions will cease to exist by summer. He's right, Dad, Olivia said gently. You know he is. We've discussed this. Richard's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by a defeated exhaustion that aged him visibly. So that's it? After 20 years, I'm simply dismissed? Not dismissed, Noah corrected. Transitioned to Chairman Emeritus. You'll retain board membership and an advisory role, but operational decisions will rest with the new CEO and NB's appointed COO. For a moment, it seemed Richard might continue fighting, but then his shoulders slumped. Without another word, he walked out of the conference room, leaving shocked silence in his wake. I should go after him, Olivia said, half rising from her chair. Let him process, Eliza advised, speaking for the first time. This is a significant blow to his pride. He'll need time. Olivia settled back reluctantly. Mr. Blake, while I appreciate your confidence, I have to question your judgment. Why would you entrust a struggling company to someone with no CEO experience? Because sometimes the best leaders aren't the ones with the most impressive titles, Noah answered. They're the ones who understand what's at stake beyond profit margins. The meeting continued for another hour, with legal teams outlining the proposed investment structure and transition plan. Throughout the technical discussions, Noah found himself increasingly certain of his decision. This wasn't the revenge he'd planned. It was something else entirely, something that felt closer to actual justice than the petty humiliation he'd envisioned. As the meeting concluded and the Westfield team gathered their materials, Noah noticed Blake Thompson hanging back, his expression uncertain. Mr. Blake, he approached nervously. Could I speak with you privately for a moment? Noah nodded, curious despite himself, and they stepped away from the group. I understand there will be organizational changes under the new structure, Blake began, his former confidence nowhere evident. I wanted to assure you that I'm committed to Westfield Solutions, regardless of leadership changes. Are you? Noah asked, studying the man who had once stood beside Olivia during his humiliation. From what I've observed, you seem to go where the power is, Mr. Thompson. Blake flinched slightly at the assessment. I've made mistakes in the past, sir, but I've worked hard to prove myself here. Ask Olivia. I started in the mailroom and earned my position through actual work, not connections. Noah was surprised to find no satisfaction in Blake's discomfort. The golden boy had apparently experienced his own fall from grace, his own reckoning. Your position will be evaluated like everyone else's, Noah said finally, based on merit, not history. Blake nodded, relief evident. That's all I ask. Thank you, sir. As Blake walked away, Noah felt a strange sense of closure. The college quarterback who had participated in his humiliation was now thanking him for the chance to keep a junior developer position. Life had its own way of balancing accounts, it seemed. Olivia approached as the room emptied, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. That was unexpected, she said. All of it. Change usually is, Noah replied. Why me? She asked directly. You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me with your investment. Noah considered his answer carefully. Let's just say I've learned to recognize genuine transformation when I see it. Something in his tone must have alerted her, because she tilted her head, studying him with new intensity. Have we met before, Mr. Blake? Before this week, I mean? The moment had arrived sooner than Noah had anticipated. For 2 years, he'd imagined revealing himself dramatically, watching shock and remorse wash over Olivia's face as she recognized the man she had once humiliated. Now, faced with the actual opportunity, he found himself hesitating. Perhaps, he said finally, in another life. She continued studying him, confusion evident in her expression. I'm sorry, but I don't. Her words were interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Raised voices, one of them distinctly Richard Westfield's. As the conference room door burst open, Noah turned, expecting another confrontation with the displaced CEO. Instead, he found himself face to face with Carson Reed, Preston University's Dean of Students, the same administrator who had processed Noah's withdrawal forms 2 years earlier. "Mr. Blake," Dean Reed said, his tone oddly formal, "I apologize for the interruption, but I received an unusual call from Richard Westfield suggesting I might find an old acquaintance here." Noah felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Beside him, Olivia looked confused by the intrusion. "Dean Reed, what are you doing here?" she asked. "Mr. Westfield seemed to think I might recognize his daughter's new business partner." The dean replied, his gaze fixed on Noah, and I believe he was correct. Noah maintained his composure with effort. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Dean Reed. We've never met, haven't we?" The dean removed his glasses, cleaning them methodically. "Because you bear a striking resemblance to a former student of ours. Noah Bennett, wasn't it? Talented young man, left under unfortunate circumstances." The room fell silent, the name hanging in the air between them. Noah felt rather than saw Olivia stiffen beside him, her sudden intake of breath audible in the quiet. "Noah?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. He couldn't look at her, keeping his gaze fixed on Dean Reed. "I think you're confusing me with someone else," he insisted, though the denial felt futile now. "Perhaps," the dean conceded, though Mr. Westfield seemed quite certain. "Something about your reaction when he mentioned a video from the Spring Festival a few years back." Noah silently cursed himself. During their initial meeting, Richard had reminisced about campus traditions, mentioning the festival video that had gone viral. Noah's momentary reaction, a tightening of his jaw, a flash of recognition, had apparently been enough to trigger Richard's suspicion. "Noah Bennett," Olivia repeated, this time with more certainty. She moved to face him directly, searching his features with new awareness. "It is you, isn't it?" The carefully constructed facade of Nathan Blake was crumbling, 2 years of planning collapsing in an instant. Noah had imagined this moment so differently, a position of power, a calculated revelation on his terms. Instead, it was happening in front of witnesses, messier and more human than his meticulous plan had allowed for. "Perhaps we should give Ms. Westfield and Mr. Blake some privacy," Eliza suggested, her sharp professionalism cutting through the tension. She gestured for Dean Reed and the remaining staff to exit, closing the door behind them with a quiet click. Alone now, Noah finally turned to face Olivia, watching as recognition dawned fully in her eyes. "It is you," she said softly, something like wonder in her voice. "Noah Bennett." He nodded once, dropping the pretense at last. "Hello, Olivia." She took an unsteady step backward, collapsing into the nearest chair. All of this, the acquisition, the investment offer, it was about revenge, wasn't it? For what happened at the festival? "Initially, yes," Noah admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "That was the plan." "And now?" she asked, her voice remarkably steady despite the shock evident in her expression. Noah ran a hand through his hair, the gesture unconsciously reminiscent of his college self. "Now I'm not sure what it is. Not revenge, though. Not anymore." Olivia was silent for a long moment, processing. "You heard what I said earlier, about trying to find you to apologize." "I did. It was true," she insisted. "After you left, after I saw what that video did, I tried to make it right, but you disappeared completely." Noah laughed without humor. "That was the point. To disappear, to become someone else." "Nathan Blake," she said, testing the name. "A complete reinvention." "Not complete," he corrected. "The core remained the same, just like with you, apparently." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "The Olivia Westfield I remember wouldn't have fought for her employees' jobs or carried guilt about a cruel act for years." Noah moved to the window, gazing out at the town that had shaped them both. "I came back expecting to find the same entitled, callous person who humiliated me. Instead, I found this version of you, it complicated things. "I can imagine," she said, and he was surprised to detect a hint of dry humor in her tone. "Nothing ruins a good revenge plot like discovering your villain has developed a conscience." Noah turned to face her, struck by her composure in the face of this revelation. "You're taking this remarkably well. What's the alternative? Hysterics? Pleading?" She shook her head. "We're not college students anymore, Noah. We're adults facing the consequences of our actions. Mine from that day at the festival, yours from this elaborate scheme." Her maturity only deepened Noah's growing sense that his plan had been fundamentally flawed from the start, built on an outdated understanding of who Olivia was. "So, what happens now?" she asked, the question hanging between them. It was the very question Noah had been asking himself since his arrival in town, with increasing urgency over the past 24 hours. "Now," he said slowly, "we decide whether the past defines our future or merely informs it." Olivia studied him, seeming to really see him for the first time. The investment offer, was that real or just part of the game? "It started as part of the plan," Noah admitted, "but sometime between reading your financials and witnessing your commitment to your employees, it became real." "And my father? Was humiliating him part of your revenge too?" Noah winced at the directness of the question. "Your father's removal as CEO was a business decision, not a personal one. The company needs new leadership to survive." "With me as CEO," she said, skepticism evident in her tone. "Was that also a business decision?" "Surprisingly, yes." Noah moved closer, leaning against the conference table. "You're the heart of Westfield Solutions, Olivia. Everyone there knows it, including your father, though he'd never admit it." She seemed to consider this, weighing his words against her own understanding of the situation. "I should hate you for this," she said finally. "The deception, the manipulation, using my family's company as a pawn in your revenge fantasy." "You should," Noah agreed. "I wouldn't blame you." "And yet," she continued, "there's a certain poetic justice to it all, isn't there? You returning as a successful businessman to save the company of the woman who once humiliated you. It's almost cinematic." Noah couldn't help but smile slightly at her assessment. "Not exactly the script I had in mind when I came back." "No, I imagine your version ended with my complete destruction," she observed, though there was more resignation than bitterness in her tone. "Instead, you're offering me the opportunity of a lifetime. Life rarely follows the scripts we write for it," Noah said, surprising himself with the philosophical turn. Olivia stood suddenly, moving to stand directly in front of him. "I am sorry, Noah. Truly, what I did to you that day, it was unforgivable. I was cruel and thoughtless, and it cost you dearly." The apology, delivered with such direct sincerity, caught Noah off guard. For 2 years, he had imagined this moment. Olivia Westfield acknowledging the pain she had caused, expressing remorse for her actions. In his fantasies, he had received her apology with cold indifference, the ultimate demonstration of how little she mattered to him now. Instead, he found himself profoundly moved by her words, by the genuine regret in her eyes. The weight he had carried for 2 years, the humiliation, the anger, the need for vindication, seemed to lighten ever so slightly. "Thank you," he said simply, unable to summon anything more eloquent. She nodded, accepting the limited response. "So where does this leave us? Business partners with a complicated history? Former enemies in an awkward truce?" Before Noah could answer, the conference room door opened abruptly, revealing Richard Westfield, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits, men Noah recognized immediately as executives from Westfield's largest competitor. "Olivia," Richard announced, triumph evident in his voice, "I found our solution. Meridian Tech is prepared to make a counteroffer, full acquisition, with guarantees to maintain current staffing levels." The executives stepped forward, one of them extending a business card toward Olivia. "Ms. Westfield, we've been monitoring your situation and believe Meridian can offer a more straightforward partnership than NB Innovations. The implication was clear. Richard had exposed Noah's identity in hopes of sabotaging the deal, then run directly to their competitors. Olivia accepted the card automatically, but her gaze remained on Noah. An unspoken question passed between them. Would he fight for the deal or retreat now that his identity was exposed? In that moment, Noah realized the true test wasn't what he had planned 2 years ago, but what he would choose now, faced with the possibility of losing everything he'd worked for. Not just the acquisition, but the unexpected opportunity to transform his narrative of revenge into something more meaningful. What would happen if he let go of the past that had driven him for so long? How do we know when it's time to release our grip on old wounds and allow new possibilities to emerge? The silence in the conference room stretched like a taut wire as Olivia looked between her father, the Meridian executives, and Noah. The business card felt heavy in her hand, a tangible symbol of the choice before her. "Dad," she finally said, her voice calm but firm, "could you give us a moment, please?" Richard Westfield's triumphant expression faltered. "There's nothing to discuss, Olivia. These gentlemen have offered us a clean exit, no restructuring, no changing of leadership. We remain intact." "I understand," she replied evenly. "But as marketing director of Westfield Solutions, I need to speak with Mr. Blake privately before any decisions are made." Professional courtesy. The Meridian executives exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the unexpected tension. "Perhaps we should step outside," one suggested. "Give you time to consider our offer." Richard began to protest, but Olivia cut him off with a quiet authority that seemed to surprise him. "Thank you, we won't be long." As the door closed behind them, Noah and Olivia faced each other across the suddenly empty conference room. The revelation of his identity hung between them, an exposed nerve neither seemed eager to touch. "Well," Noah said finally, "your father works quickly. He's fighting for his legacy," Olivia replied. "Can you blame him?" "No." Noah moved to the window, gazing out at the town that had witnessed both their fall and rise. "He's doing exactly what I would do in his position." Olivia studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Is that why you came back? To fight for your legacy?" The question struck deeper than she could know. Noah had spent 2 years building NB Innovations, crafting a narrative of success that would erase the humiliated student he'd once been. But standing here now, with his carefully constructed veneer stripped away, he wondered what legacy he truly wanted. "I thought I came back for justice," he admitted. "Or revenge. I'm not sure I knew the difference anymore." "And now?" Noah turned to face her. "Now I think I came back to finish something that never really ended for me. To close a chapter I couldn't seem to move beyond." Olivia nodded slowly, as if his words confirmed something she'd already sensed. "So, what happens now?" "Meridian's offer is real. My father will push for it, especially now that he knows who you really are." "What do you want to happen?" Noah countered, genuinely curious. 24 hours ago, you were preparing to fight for your employees against a corporate takeover. Now you're facing 2 acquisition offers and a CEO position. The choice seems obvious. Does it? Olivia moved closer, her gaze direct and unflinching. "One offer comes from a competitor who approached us only after my father revealed your identity, clearly hoping to capitalize on personal drama. The other comes from someone I once grievously wronged, who spent 2 years planning an elaborate confrontation only to apparently change his mind at the last minute." She raised an eyebrow. "Neither option seems particularly straightforward." Despite everything, Noah felt a smile tug at the corner of his mouth when you put it that way. "The real question," Olivia continued, "is whether your offer still stands now that we're past the deception. Is NB Innovations genuinely interested in restructuring Westfield Solutions with me as CEO, or was that just the setup for whatever revelation you had planned?" It was a fair question, and one Noah had been asking himself since the moment Dean Reed walked through the door. His original plan had culminated in a much different scenario. Olivia discovering his identity at the contract signing, realizing too late that she had handed control of her family's company to the man she had once humiliated. He had imagined her shock, her dismay, perhaps even her pleading. Instead, here she stood, composed, direct, challenging him to move beyond petty retribution towards something more substantial. "The offer stands," Noah said decisively. "In fact, I'm more convinced than ever that you're the right person to lead Westfield through this transition." "Why?" she pressed. "Because you feel guilty about your original plan? Because it's convenient? Or because you actually believe in my capabilities? Because in the past 3 days, I've seen more evidence of your leadership than your father has demonstrated in years," Noah replied honestly. "And because I've built my company on recognizing potential where others don't bother to look." Olivia considered his words, her expression giving nothing away. "And the personal history between us? You don't think that will complicate a business partnership?" "Undoubtedly," Noah acknowledged, "but perhaps not in the way you might expect." Before he could elaborate, a soft knock preceded Eliza's entrance. She glanced between them, her professional demeanor barely concealing her concern. "Sorry to interrupt, but the Meridian team is getting restless, and your father," she addressed Olivia directly, "is making some rather public accusations about Noah's identity and intentions." Noah sighed. The situation was spiraling beyond his control, exactly what he'd always worked to prevent. "How bad?" "He's in the hotel lobby telling anyone who'll listen that you're a former student with a vendetta," Eliza replied bluntly. "Several people are recording it. It's only a matter of time before this becomes a social media situation." The irony wasn't lost on Noah. Once again, he was the subject of unwanted public attention centered around the Westfield family. History seemed determined to repeat itself, just with the roles slightly rearranged. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, embarrassment and resignation washing over her features. "I'm so sorry. He doesn't handle loss of control well. Apparently it runs in the family," Noah observed, though without malice. To his surprise, Olivia laughed, a short, genuine sound that seemed to release some of the tension in the room. "Touché." She turned to Eliza. "Tell the Meridian executives I'll speak with them shortly. And if you could, perhaps find my father and suggest he might want to consider the legal implications of his current behavior." Eliza nodded approvingly. "Already handled. Our legal counsel is having a friendly chat with him about potential defamation claims." After Eliza departed, Noah found himself appreciating the decisive way Olivia had addressed the situation. It confirmed what he'd observed in her management style: quick, clear decision-making without being rattled by chaos. "You didn't answer my question," Olivia said, returning to their interrupted conversation. "How exactly do you think our history will complicate a partnership?" Noah considered his answer carefully. "I think it will make us more honest than most business partners. There's no pretense left between us. You know my worst impulses, and I've seen both the cruelty and compassion you're capable of. We've already seen each other at our worst. That's an unusual foundation, but not necessarily a weak one." Olivia studied him, seeming to weigh his words against her own judgment. "You've changed," she observed finally. "So have you." "Yes," she agreed. "But I knew who I was becoming. You're not who I expected." "Who did you expect? Someone broken by what happened, or someone hardened by it, fueled purely by revenge?" She shook her head slightly. "Not someone who could change course when presented with new information." Noah felt an unexpected warmth at her assessment. "I built a technology company, Olivia. Adapting to new data is essential for survival." She smiled at that, a genuine expression that transformed her face. "Is that what we're doing? Surviving?" "For now," Noah replied, "but I think we could do more than survive. I think we could build something significant, professionally," he clarified quickly. "Professionally," she repeated, a hint of amusement in her tone. "Of course." Noah realized with some surprise that they had shifted into something that felt almost like easy conversation. The weight of their shared history momentarily lightened by their mutual recognition of the absurdity of their situation. "So," he said, bringing them back to the practical matter at hand, "what will you tell Meridian and your father?" Olivia straightened, her decision apparently made. "I'll tell them that Westfield Solutions has accepted NB Innovations' restructuring offer, pending final contract review." She extended her hand. "If that offer still stands." Noah took her hand, the formal handshake sealing a partnership neither of them could have imagined just days earlier. "It stands." "Then I suppose we're partners," she said, withdrawing her hand. "Though I should warn you, my father won't accept this easily. He'll fight." "I'm counting on it," Noah replied. "Every good business story needs conflict. Makes the eventual success more satisfying." Olivia laughed again, this time with a trace of disbelief. "You're really not what I expected, Noah Bennett." "Likewise, Olivia Westfield." He gestured toward the door. "Shall we face the firing squad together?" She nodded, squaring her shoulders. "Together." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, employee announcements, and strategic planning sessions. As predicted, Richard Westfield fought the transition, first with threats of legal action, then with attempts to sway the board against the deal. When those failed, he retreated into bitter acceptance, cleaning out his office over a weekend when the building was empty. Noah had given Olivia space to handle her father, recognizing that his presence would only inflame an already difficult situation. Instead, he focused on integrating Westfield's technology with NB's existing products, working closely with their development team, including, somewhat awkwardly, Blake Thompson. To Noah's surprise, Blake had proven himself hard-working and creative, though lacking in confidence. During their initial private meeting, Blake had hesitantly approached the subject of their shared past. "I know who you are," he'd admitted, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "And I remember what happened at the festival. I was part of that. I'm sorry." Noah had studied him, searching for the arrogant quarterback who had once stood by smirking while Olivia tore him apart publicly. Instead, he found a humbled man who seemed genuinely remorseful. "What happened to you?" Noah had asked, genuinely curious. "After college, I mean." Blake had laughed without humor. "Life, reality. I got drafted to a minor league team, blew out my knee first season and discovered I had no marketable skills besides throwing a ball. Turns out that doesn't open many doors in the real world." The explanation had been delivered without self-pity, just a matter-of-fact acceptance that had surprised Noah. When he'd expressed this, Blake had shrugged. "Rock bottom has a way of clarifying things," he'd said. "Olivia was the only person who answered my calls when things fell apart, got me the mailroom job when no one else would take a chance on me." The revelation had added another piece to the puzzle of who Olivia had become, someone who would help even those who had participated in her cruelest moments. Now, 15 days after the dramatic revelation of his identity, Noah stood in the newly renovated offices of Westfield NB Technologies, the compromise name chosen for the restructured company. The open concept workspace hummed with energy as the merged teams collaborated on their first joint project. Noah checked his watch, noting that Olivia was late for their scheduled meeting, unusual for her typically punctual style. As if summoned by his thoughts, the elevator doors opened and she strode in, looking somewhat harried but determined. "Sorry I'm late," she said, joining him at the observation window overlooking the workspace. "Early morning crisis with the Milton account. All handled now." "No problem," Noah assured her. "Everything on track for the product launch next month?" "Ahead of schedule, actually. Blake's team found a way to optimize the algorithm that's improved performance by 30%. Noah nodded, genuinely impressed. "Good. The board will be pleased." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the teams below. The past 2 weeks had established a working relationship between them that was professional, efficient, and carefully bounded. Neither had mentioned their shared history again after that day in the conference room, as if by unspoken agreement. I had dinner with Marcus last night. Noah said finally. He asked me to say hello. Olivia smiled slightly. He was always kind, even when I didn't deserve it. How is he? Finishing his medical residency next month. Thinking of opening a practice here. That would be good for the community, she observed. Then, after a brief hesitation, he asked about us, didn't he? Noah glanced at her, surprised by her perception. He did. What did you tell him? The truth, that we're business partners, navigating a complicated history and a promising future. Olivia nodded, seemingly satisfied with this description. And he accepted that? Hardly, Noah admitted with a small smile. He called us both stubborn and suggested therapy. She laughed, the sound no longer rare but still precious in its authenticity. Smart man. Maybe that's why he's becoming a doctor. Another comfortable silence fell between them, different from the tense quiet of their early interactions. This was the silence of two people who had begun to understand each other beyond the caricatures they had once believed in. I have something for you, Olivia said suddenly, reaching into her bag. I've been debating whether to give it to you, but I think it's time. She handed him a small USB drive, her expression uncertain for the first time in days. What is it? Noah asked, turning the drive over in his palm. The video, she said quietly, from the festival, and everything that happened afterward that you didn't see. Noah stared at the drive, a cold weight settling in his stomach. Why would I want this? Because it's part of our story, she replied simply, and because what you don't know, what you couldn't know since you left campus immediately after, is what happened next. How it changed things for me, for others. Noah pocketed the drive, not certain he would ever view its contents, but understanding the significance of her offering it. Thank you. You don't have to watch it, she assured him. But if you do, it might help explain why seeing you again affected me the way it did. Why I recognized your name immediately when Dean Reed mentioned it. Noah looked at her sharply. You recognized my name? But you showed no sign of that when he was here. Of course I recognized it, she said, surprise evident in her tone. Noah, I spent months trying to find you after you left. Your name is not one I would ever forget. Before Noah could process this revelation, Eliza approached with a tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but the San Francisco office is on the line about the Rivera contract. They need your input. Noah nodded, grateful for the professional interruption. I'll take it in my office. As Eliza retreated, he turned back to Olivia. We should continue this conversation. Yes, she agreed. Dinner? Tonight? There's more I think we should discuss, away from the office. Dinner, Noah confirmed, surprising himself with the anticipation he felt at the prospect. 7 o'clock? Perfect. I know a place where no one will recognize either of us. She smiled, a complicated expression that held both regret and hope. Probably best to avoid an audience this time. The restaurant Olivia had chosen was located in a neighboring town, a small Italian place with private booths and subdued lighting. As they settled across from each other, Noah realized this was the first time they had been truly alone together, outside the context of business or their shared past. You look different, Olivia observed after they had ordered, studying him over the rim of her water glass. I am different, Noah replied. 2 years changes people. No, I mean tonight. Less guarded. She set down her glass. The Noah Bennett who arrived 2 weeks ago was all sharp edges and armor. Tonight, you seem more like yourself. Maybe I'm finally figuring out who that is, he admitted. For 2 years, I defined myself in opposition to what happened at Preston. Everything I built, every decision I made was filtered through that lens. Coming back here, confronting it directly, it's been clarifying. Olivia nodded, understanding evident in her expression. I went through something similar after you left. The video, the one I gave you, it didn't just show your humiliation. It captured mine too. Noah raised an eyebrow, confused. What do you mean? After you left that day, Marcus confronted me in front of everyone, told me exactly what kind of person I'd revealed myself to be. She looked down at the table, the memory clearly still painful. He filmed that too and made sure it circulated alongside the original video, a sort of karmic epilogue. Marcus did that. Noah couldn't hide his surprise. His friend had never mentioned this part of the story. He did, and he was right to. Olivia met his gaze directly. The things he said, they forced me to really see myself, maybe for the first time. The weeks that followed were difficult. I lost friends, respect, my social standing, but I gained perspective. Hence the transformation. Noah murmured, pieces falling into place. The volunteering, the mentoring. Not just for show, she clarified quickly. Once I started actually paying attention to people beyond my social circle, I realized how much I'd been missing. How many incredible people I'd dismissed because they didn't fit my narrow definition of success. People like me, Noah suggested without bitterness. People like you, she agreed. Though as it turns out, you fit even my old definition of success quite spectacularly. They shared a smile at that, the tension between them softening further as their meals arrived. So, Noah said after they had begun eating, this place where no one would recognize us. Is that because you come here often? Olivia nodded. It became my refuge during senior year when campus got uncomfortable. The owner, Sophia, she doesn't tolerate gossip or drama. Just serves good food and minds her business. Sounds like my kind of place. I thought it might be. She hesitated, then added, I used to imagine running into you somewhere like this. What I would say if I ever got the chance to apologize properly. And now that you have? Noah asked quietly. Now I find myself with more to say than just, I'm sorry, she admitted. Though that remains the foundation. We've both said it, Noah pointed out. Perhaps it's time to build on that foundation rather than continuing to examine it. Olivia studied him, a slow smile spreading across her features. Nathan Blake was right about one thing. You are an exceptionally forward-thinking businessman. And Olivia Westfield is proving to be an exceptionally capable CEO. He returned, raising his glass in a small toast. To building something new. She clinked her glass against his. To building something new. As dinner progressed, their conversation shifted away from the past, focusing instead on their shared vision for Westfield NB Technologies. They discovered a surprising alignment in their business philosophies, despite their different backgrounds and paths. You know, Olivia said as they lingered over dessert, 2 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be having dinner with Noah Bennett, planning the future of my family's company as equal partners, I would have thought they were delusional. If someone had told me I'd be willingly sitting across from Olivia Westfield without plotting her downfall, I would have thought the same. Noah admitted with a wry smile. And yet, here we are. She studied him thoughtfully. Do you ever wonder about the parallel universe where the Spring Festival never happened? Where you never approached me, or I responded differently? The question caught Noah off guard. He'd spent countless hours imagining alternate versions of that day, but always focused on the humiliation being avoided, never on what might have developed instead. I haven't, he admitted. Have you? Sometimes, she confessed. Especially after I realized what I'd done and couldn't find you to make amends. I wondered if we might have become friends or colleagues. If our paths might have crossed professionally later under different circumstances. And now, do you still wonder about alternate timelines? Olivia's expression turned contemplative. Less often. Lately, I've been more focused on this timeline. The one where we took the longest possible route to find ourselves exactly where we needed to be. The way she looked at him as she said it, direct, open, with a warmth that had nothing to do with professional courtesy, made Noah suddenly aware of the possibility that had been gradually building between them over the past 2 weeks. Not just business partners respectfully navigating a complicated history, but two people discovering an unexpected connection that transcended that history. Olivia, he began, unsure what he intended to say, but feeling the need to acknowledge the shifting ground between them. She reached across the table, her hand coming to rest lightly on his. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight, Noah. We have time." The simple touch and the promise of time, something neither of them had believed possible 2 weeks ago, felt more meaningful than any elaborate declaration could have been. "Time," Noah agreed, turning his hand to briefly clasp hers. "That's something neither of us anticipated when I came back to town." "The best things rarely are anticipated," she replied, withdrawing her hand but maintaining the connection between them through her steady gaze. "They're discovered along the way." 3 months later, the official launch of Westfield NB Technologies' first joint product exceeded all market projections. The integrated supply chain management system, combining Westfield's industrial expertise with NB's cutting-edge algorithms, attracted attention from industry leaders and financial analysts alike. Standing at the edge of the launch party, Noah watched as Olivia confidently fielded questions from tech journalists, her natural charm and thorough knowledge of the product making her the perfect face for their new venture. The employees who had once feared for their jobs now moved through the crowd with pride, their company not just saved, but thriving. "Quite a transformation," Marcus commented, appearing at Noah's side with 2 champagne flutes. He handed one to Noah. "Both the company and its leadership." Noah accepted the drink with a nod of thanks. "It's exceeded even my expectations." "I wasn't talking about the business," Marcus clarified, his knowing gaze moving between Noah and Olivia. "Though that's impressive too." Noah smiled, but didn't deny the implication. Over the past 3 months, his relationship with Olivia had evolved from cautious, professional respect to genuine friendship, and recently, to something more significant. Though both were proceeding with appropriate caution, aware of the complex foundation they were building upon. "She's remarkable," Noah said simply. "You both are," Marcus replied. "Not many people could transform what happened between you into something constructive. Most would have either clung to resentment or pretended the past never existed." "We tried both approaches," Noah admitted. "Neither worked particularly well." "And now?" Noah considered the question, watching as Olivia concluded her interview and scanned the room, her expression brightening when she located him. "Now we're writing a new story, one that acknowledges the past without being defined by it." Marcus followed his gaze, smiling as Olivia began making her way toward them. "She still looks at you like she can't quite believe you're real, you know." "The feeling is mutual," Noah replied honestly. As Olivia reached them, she greeted Marcus warmly before standing beside Noah, their shoulders just touching. A subtle but intentional connection. "The Peterson Group is ready to sign," she informed them, her professional tone belied by the private smile she shared with Noah. "Their CEO just told me they're doubling their initial order." "Congratulations to both of you," Marcus said, raising his glass. "To success against all odds." "To second chances," Olivia amended, her gaze meeting Noah's with unmistakable meaning. "To second chances," Noah echoed, finding himself profoundly grateful for the unexpected journey that had brought him back to his hometown and toward a future he could never have envisioned. Later that evening, as the party wound down and the last guests departed, Noah and Olivia stood on the rooftop terrace of the Westfield NB building, the lights of the small city spread before them like stars. "My father called today," Olivia said, breaking a comfortable silence. "His first time reaching out since the transition." Noah turned to her, concerned. "How did that go?" "Better than expected. He's in Arizona, working with a startup there." She smiled slightly. "He actually congratulated me on the launch, said he'd been following the press coverage." "That's progress," Noah observed, knowing how much her father's approval still mattered to her despite everything. "It is." She leaned against the railing, her shoulder brushing his. "He also asked about you. I imagine that was an interesting conversation." "He wanted to know if Nathan Blake was treating his daughter well," she said, amusement evident in her tone. I told him that Noah Bennett was treating me very well indeed. Noah raised an eyebrow. Bold. Honest, she corrected, turning to face him fully. Something we promised each other from the beginning. The evening breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and Noah reached out, gently tucking it behind her ear. A small intimacy that would have been unimaginable months ago. Honesty, then, he said softly. I never thought I could forgive what happened that day at the festival. It shaped 2 years of my life, drove every decision I made. And now? She asked, echoing the question he had pondered so often. Now I'm grateful for it, he admitted, the truth of the words surprising him even as he spoke them. Not for the pain, but for where it led. Without that moment, I might never have built NB Innovations, might never have become someone who could return to face his past. Without that moment, I might never have confronted who I was becoming, Olivia added. Might never have worked to become someone better, and we certainly wouldn't be standing here, Noah concluded, gesturing to the view before them. Not just the city lights, but the metaphorical landscape of their joined future. No, she agreed, her expression softening as she looked at him. We wouldn't. When she reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers with deliberate intent, Noah felt the last vestiges of his old anger and pain dissolve, replaced by something far more powerful. The recognition that sometimes life's cruelest moments can lead to its most unexpected gifts. We have the product launch in San Francisco next week, he said, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. I was thinking you might want to stay a few extra days. See the city properly, away from business meetings. I'd like that, she replied, her smile holding a promise of possibilities neither of them had dared imagine when he first returned to town. As they stood together, the past behind them and the future unwritten, Noah realized that the true resolution of his story wasn't about revenge or even forgiveness. It was about transformation. The journey from humiliation to triumph, from enemies to partners, from broken to whole. Sometimes, the most powerful response to cruelty isn't punishment but growth, becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than you might otherwise have been. And sometimes, the people who once caused your greatest pain become instrumental in your greatest healing. Noah Bennett had returned to his hometown seeking justice. What he found instead was something far more valuable, a second chance to write a better story, not alone this time, but alongside the most unexpected of co-authors. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more powerful tales like this. See you in the next video. All stories on this channel are works of fiction created solely for entertainment. Any similarity to real persons or events is purely coincidental.